Thank you for joining us for the Marist Conversation Series, a 6-part discussion about the priorities of our Strategic Plan 2025. Today is the second installment focusing on our third strategic priority, to educate the whole child. We'll look today at how the formation our students receive through the fine arts, through clubs and activities, and through the athletics program help them become the person God is calling them to be. Joining me first is Dr. Michael Bieze, Fine Arts Department Chair, followed by Miss Amelia Luke, the Director of Student and Campus Activities. And at the close, we'll speak with Mr. Tommy Marshall, our Athletic Director. First, though, we'll begin with Dr. Bieze. Michael, thanks so much for joining me today. As we think about educating the whole child, which our mission calls us to do, we realize that at the center of that isn't just the academic development or the intellectual development of a student, but includes too the whole spiritual, physical, and emotional development of our students as well. We know that the fine arts play a key role in that. So describe for us, Michael, how do you see the fine arts contributing to this whole child development that is center to the Marist student experience?
Well, thanks for inviting me. Since I'm an art historian and I only think through images, I brought one. So it's Caravaggio's Calling St. Matthew. And for those who aren't familiar with it, it's a series of paintings in the Church of San Luigi in Rome. There's a lunette with real light that then enters the painting. What art can do is enter the complexity of experience in a way that nothing else really can. So if you look at that painting, there are a number of men sitting at a table. It'd be like today if you were up the street in an office and they're dressed in very fashionable suits. They're high finance people with lots of money. And so that's this empirical reality. What enters or breaks that space then are two men. They're barefoot, they're poor. You realize they're of this world and not of this world. And so it's ontological. These are two different realities, and it's Christ, and as his hand extends, we realize it's the hand of Adam from the Sistine ceiling, and he's come now as the fulfillment of the first Adam. So what art can do is present to us realities at once that are different and complex. One is empirical, one is faith. And how I think that works in what we do is that on the one hand, arts education is teaching skills and teaching media and teaching how to sing and play an instrument. And I think a lot of schools do that well, and I think we do that exceptionally well. I think what makes us different is that we also have what's in our mission statement, aesthetics, which is a curious word, to have in our mission statement. Aesthetics the word means perception. To how do we perceive the world, whether through all the senses. This one, by the way, is filtered through a Jesuit aesthetic of knowing faith through the senses. We have to then reflect on those things. So we observe the world, and hopefully what all the arts teach us is how to suspend judgment. We don't hopefully rush in. We want to check our assumptions, our biases. And then we want to make connections. We want to, from those reflections, hopefully new patterns arise, new ways of seeing. And to me, that's where we can enter into empathy. We can enter into conflicts. Art can heal, it can help us pray, but it also offers us possibilities of seeing the world in completely new ways. And I think especially now with the media, arts literacy in general is essential for us kind of pushing through the veneer or surface of the information we receive and understand what are those underlying messages.
Yeah, and I love the painting, but I also appreciate just in that the name of it, the calling of St. Matthew, this idea of being called out of ourselves and being called to this greater purpose we have, and I see the arts as having that role. We learn something about the relationship between creator and created through the arts. We learn best how to sort of be the fulfillment of creation that we're called to be, and have a sense about what that might be as we move forward. And that idea of aesthetics, which is sort of the movement in one way from sort of recognition of the beautiful to the sublime, kind of being pulled up out of yourself into that perspective where you can sort of take stock of the world and your place in it and what you're called to do and act and how you're called to be in community with others too is a core part of that. So, how do we, I guess, through the formal study of art, but also through the practice of those skills, sort of bring students to see themselves as active agents in the world through the arts?
First, I guess at the simplest is we have an incredible number of offerings. So within the visual arts, for instance, ceramics at every level, studio art at every level, photography, art history. So that calling, it's nice to be able to have a space that is free of judgment, that is a safe space. You can try different things and maybe discover things you didn't know. So we have lots of offerings, in chorus at every level, in band at every level, from performance to technology, to dance, so to theater, both as a class and extracurricular. So part of that calling is just making sure that we provide lots of opportunities for a chance for students to try different things.
It's wonderful. You see a student and you might see him walking in the hall or in the cafeteria, and you have a sense of that child. But then you see him on the stage, or
Absolutely.
You see him singing or dancing, and you see them come alive in a totally different way, where somehow they're expressing that deepest part of themselves that you wouldn't otherwise have the chance to see. And it's a wonderful and great experience, I think, for us to see it as audience members, but too for that child to be able to have that experience.
It's really important for us to create a home or a space, really almost a sacred space for the students, that they can do that, again, free of judgment, try different things. It's their home. I mean, what I like about Marist is we have lots of homes. There's certainly a place for the athletes, for the kids in robotics, for all kinds of groups, but the arts community as a whole, whether it's, the faculty, the parents, we couldn't do this without MAG, for instance. All of us together, there's a community and there's a space, a home that these students, I think, can thrive in.
And a big part of that is the adults, the faculty who create that. And obviously we have an amazing and accomplished faculty in the arts. Just talk about the importance of them as practicing artists as well as their care and concern for the young people.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fun. I feel blessed. I've done this for a long time. I don't even know the number, but I think this is my 33rd year as department chair. So I've hired a lot of people. And the good and bad of hiring a lot of people is, I've, especially in the visual arts, had made the decision, should I hire in partnership with the headmaster, more art ed people or artists? And I go back to my own high school days where there was something so powerful about seeing artists at work. These were really accomplished artists I had, and I wanted to make sure that we created that we had really good teachers, but that the kids could see people who, in a sense, there's no difference between life here, their job, and their life. There's a continuum. The students here rise to challenges. They know the real thing. They know that if you're passionate about it or you're just phoning it in. I mean, everyone's really good at what they do, and I think that makes a big difference. The students are drawn to the real thing.
Yeah, and we've seen that play out during this pandemic too, where they're able to bring to bear all the creative energy that they have stored up to continue with performances when a lot of other schools might be closing up shop in the arts. We've moved on, and why don't you just say a little bit about what we've been able to do and your sense of how we've been able to do it over the last year?
Yeah, there's obviously advantages to having young faculty, experienced faculty. This is one of those times, thank God we had an experienced faculty. Because especially in the arts, we were hit with so many unknowns and things constantly changing. And so to have really seasoned veteran teachers who in a second could kind of shift. And we got back to fundamentals. It's interesting, we're all drawn to various things, but we got back down to some real basics. So photography obviously couldn't happen in the darkroom. So Hope Smith had to do things with apps and all kinds of things with their digital cameras. Ceramics, forget it, right? Where a lot of schools did shut this down, she ordered clay from Amazon, went to their house, they went into their kitchen, had to kind of reimagine all those tools and how could they become clay tools. Dance on this campus has been everywhere. You know, it started out in the batting cages. It was in Crest Lobby. It was in Woodruff. It's outside now. I would say if I was going to give an award for the department, I would give it for innovation during these tough times. I'd give it to Mark Craddock. You know, first of all, just on a class level during hybrid, we were not allowed to play instruments. So a lot of band programs just shut down. You can't have woodwinds, you can't have brass. Well, first of all, with the marching band, they did something ingenious. So lots of marching bands didn't even happen this fall. They went percussion. So they took Queen and did the entire thing percussion. So it was like, all right, we don't have any instruments, and only because Mark is, I think, a genius. You know, he shifted, they did an entire show percussion-based. The classes, which can average 60 people, they split. So Mark taught the history of rock and roll and got into some really deep stuff with race and historical context, while Aaron took them into a space where they could blow their horns but be at home. The district solo ensemble was shut down by the state, but we hosted our own, and other schools came, and now actually representatives from the state are coming to us asking us how we did it. It's been a constant set of, you know, the goalposts keep moving, and we keep making changes. And last of all, you know, with theater, the class, for instance, which is always, you know, in person, it's improv, he did some really cool stuff. They did broadcasts online. They did old-time radio shows, because especially when they were hybrid at home, so they would tape these things. And our production, unprecedented in the fall, how do you have rehearsals and have it with some kids who can be on campus and some kids who can't? So we actually created a performance that accommodated both. So it was for those, you know, who saw it, I think were really impressed. It was a series of 10-minute shows. Some of them were zoomed in, and some of them were live, and the audience in masks moved around from group to group. So we used what we had and used the campus as our stage. So across the board, I think I was just so thankful we had a really experienced faculty who, again, constantly changing and made sure that the arts kept going.
That's right, and I mean, built up, you know, went back to the chalkboard method and taught those basics, and then as soon as we were able, I mean, I remember seeing the chorus performances that were overlaid videos of each of the kids singing at home and just making music in a fundamentally different way than they've ever been able to experience before. Right. So I think, you know, innovation allows us to learn and allows us and calls us really to look forward into the future. What do you see as next for the Fine Arts Department, you know, as we continue to prioritize it through our strategic plan? Where do you see us go from here?
That's a hard question. You know, I thought about this. I've been thinking about this. We've been actually talking about this. I think right now we're still so in the midst of something that we know there are a lot of lessons to be learned from this. We just don't know. You need a little distance to know what they are. Like I said, what we learned first of all is, you know, before we even look forward, what can we take from this experience? Not necessarily with pedagogy or learning, but I hope in some way, for instance, students who have long-term illnesses, physical or mental illnesses, that are away for some period of time, that we don't add to their anxiety by not being in class, because this can be a challenging place. That, I mean, I'm certainly open to keeping a virtual element there so that those students who long-term can't be here can still be at Marist, for instance. But I think we're going to, over the next few months, talk a lot about this experience, because right now we're all really tired. But as we get our energy back, I think there's actually a lot we have been through, and as we talk about it is what's going to bring us forward.
So it's interesting. One way to think about kind of the other side of this pandemic is what I've heard called a COVID keeper. You know, those practices, those things that you take up during the pandemic that you think, oh, this is really kind of a useful thing to do moving forward in general, and what you can change. You know, how you can fundamentally change what you do based on what we've learned about ourselves, about our work, and our relationships with our students through the crisis as well. One thing that we know has been a big help to us is having the support of parents during this time, and certainly our Marist Arts Guild has been a big part of what has kept the arts up and running, not just this year, but for many years. So why don't you speak a little bit to how their support has impacted the student experience in the arts here at Marist?
Yeah, absolutely. We couldn't do our work without them. Luckily when I started, they took me under their wing and they showed me Marist moms are a force to reckon with. So they were called Friends of Woodruff back in the day. So at some point changed their name, but been around since the 80s. We've had remarkable parents who have helped us in every way imaginable. Certainly, financially, they've been our safety net. And you can see that all over the campus. One thing I started with them a long time ago was every year buying student work. So as you travel around our campus, there's extraordinary pieces, and those are through the generosity of MAC. They've purchased those pieces, framed them. We're in the process of labeling them and getting the titles and names and dates, but you can go through this campus and see the history of the school and the arts program through their generosity. They've purchased all kinds of things. If we need special instruments, they're our safety. It's call a mom, for when we need some help.
One of the things I enjoy, you described kind of going through campus and seeing the artwork that we have up on the walls here, and it's just a testimony to our alums, so many of them who've gone on to be practicing artists. We'll walk down the hall and see, oh, there's a work by somebody who's out, and that's exactly what they're doing now, and we see that performance. So, how have our alums gone on to practice the arts in their life and taken that up as their work?
As I think about that, it's really in two ways. We certainly have had students who have gone on, well-known, Omari Hardwick in television, Elena Ricardo, starring in Mamma Mia, Camilla Foreman. In the world, one of the biggest art foundations in the world is Dia, and she is their managing editor. Major jobs in the art world. Annika Connor as a painter. The majority of them, it's what they got from the arts, what they did in the world, and how much they credit, whether they're in business or teaching. Erin Nitsuga teaches AP English in inner city schools in Baltimore, but was on the stage and loved theater, and she loved the arts. Mark Rosenketter, who's a businessman, but he's incredibly adventurous and dynamic, and he credits the arts. Brett Baer, Fox News, was on our stage along with Chris Carr, now a Marist dad, who, when I see him, he still talks about being on the stage at Marist. So those creative experiences, that home they were on campus with here, they've taken in other ways. So I think we've provided a place to launch careers in the arts, but also what we've done, I think, has enhanced the values and opportunities in other kinds of careers as well.
And to think that all of that was sort of seeded here, some sense of purpose ultimately kind of compelled them beyond because of experiences they had here at Marist to go into the arts beyond as well. And I know that's in such a huge part because of your department and the work you do with these young people and the passion you share for your subject. So Michael, I thank you so much for joining us today and appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you, Kevin.
Having considered how our students' aesthetic education impacts their development as a whole person, we turn next to their involvement in clubs and activities as a means to contribute to that same development as we educate the whole child. Amelia, thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome.
I'm glad to have the chance to talk about our clubs and activities, which I know are just a foundational part of Marist students' experience here. And so often the relationships they form with each other in those clubs and activities, or what they learn from their moderators, are just a big part of what they take away from Marist. Why do you think that the clubs and activities we offer here have such an impact on our students?
We have such a wide breadth of student activities here that we really allow students to find what they're interested in. There's really a place for everybody here. We have over 80 non-athletic student activities in which they can be involved in. And They range from things like honor societies to interest clubs, student media, student government opportunities, academic competitive teams. So we really offer a wide variety of activities for students to be involved in and to really find what they're passionate about during their time here.
It's amazing to me to think about the fact that we have 89 ways that our students can find an interest or an area of passion to explore beyond the academic realm. And we keep pace in our student activities, I know, with student interests. Those things that they're most interested in, we find a way for them to be involved in it here at Marist. And I know part of what's important about that is we have a protected time and space for students to participate in those things, activity period. So talk to me about how you see students using activity period and the benefit that has in their involvement in clubs and activities.
Absolutely. Activity period is, I think, the best feature of our school schedule, that we actually feel that student activities are important enough to dedicate time to in our weekly schedule. As you alluded to, our clubs are student-driven, which means that teachers aren't creating these clubs. Students are organizing themselves to create these clubs in areas that they find an interest or a passion in. And so our club offerings are constantly changing and evolving. Right before Christmas, we added 5 new student organizations to our roster and have 2 more that have just come in this week. So we're excited to be able to accommodate the gamut of student interests around here.
That's right. We've had rocket clubs, we've had drone clubs, in addition to some of the more traditional or typical clubs, a Spanish club. And each of those is just another way for a student to participate in something that they're interested in and passionate about and want to learn more about. Just as important as a dedicated time for clubs to take place, it's good to have dedicated spaces for that as well. And I know we have a brand new, newly minted student activities hub here, which also serves as kind of your home base. How has that space really impacted the work you're able to do with students?
Oh, it's impacted it tremendously. Having a space where students are welcome to come in and are welcome to sit down in a comfortable chair and talk about what they want to have happen for their clubs or their organizations. Student government is using it heavily as a place to meet, to figure out ways that we can continue to operate in a COVID world. And so just having the physical space that's dedicated to student activities has really been a game changer.
And I know so much of what our clubs and activities bring to students is that experiential component of their education. And so I think, for example, of our Latin students reading all of the Iliad out loud, or the chariot races we have going around the arcade. What are some of your favorite examples of the ways that our clubs and activities really bring the full experience of something to our students?
Absolutely. The Latin Club is fantastic at that. I love when they reenact Mount Vesuvius erupting. I know that it's a favorite of Senor Perez to be shaving a leg of whatever cured meat he has. So there's always something interesting happening during an activity period that really illustrates our student interests.
Yeah, it's just a way for students to kind of use their hands, and there's certainly nothing more exciting than a volcanic eruption during an activity period to bring some smiles to students' faces. They get to see each other in those roles too. I think of things like our debate team, our academic team, our robotics teams, each of which allows students to kind of compete at the highest level in their school, and their classmates get to witness that. Talk to me about the academic competitions we have.
Absolutely. We recently actually had some younger debate students win the state competition in debate. We are constantly competing at very high levels. It's certainly changed this year with COVID, but it's really increased our ability to be involved in a lot of competitions that we now don't actually have to physically travel to when we can compete in an online format.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was driving to a state cross-country meet, and at the same time I was listening to our academic team compete in one of the regional competitions, and hearing our students do that was remarkable. So, the pandemic has caused us to rethink and to reimagine how so many of our clubs and activities kind of exist. And so how have our clubs and activities abided during this challenging time?
Actually really well. It's been a nice infusion of innovation, I think we've seen in our clubs. We're getting outside of our bubbles, and we're thinking of new and unique ways that we can work. Many of our activities are able to continue with COVID protocols. For instance, we still held a creek cleanup this fall because it's outdoors and we can be masked and spread out. But other clubs have been pretty innovative in what they've been doing. The art club, for instance, has been taking virtual museum tours all around the world. It's interesting to see them visit the Musée d'Orsay in Paris and then travel on to somewhere else that they can't actually physically be in.
These days, more than ever, media is a huge part of what our students consume and is also an increasingly important thing for them to be able to produce. And so I know so many of our clubs and activities really help students kind of engage with media and learn the relevant skills in the 21st century to be their own creators of things through broadcasts and podcasts. Talk to us about student involvement in and production of media.
In addition to the normal media offerings that you would see in a high school, our yearbook, our newspaper, we have an active literary magazine. We've really added to our student media offerings in the past several years. We have the Marist Broadcasting Club, MBC, that produces almost weekly news broadcasts, and they've seen a tremendous amount of growth in their sports broadcasting arm. So it's a really cool opportunity to have students out in front calling athletic events on campus, and that gets broadcast online. They've seen tremendous viewership, and not just in broadcasting our football games. They've been broadcasting soccer games and basketball games and lacrosse games, and so it's tremendous to see the growth that we've seen in that area.
Yeah, the broadcasts have been remarkable. I attend pretty much every football game, and then I find myself listening to every football game just because of the quality of the broadcast afterwards as well. The commitment our students have had, their demonstrated excellence in front of and behind the camera, the technical know-how they have to be able to make these broadcasts has really been something to see. And as you said, our Bieze Center for Immersive Experience and Design has really opened up new opportunities for students to get in front of or behind a camera, get in front of a microphone, do sound mixing, and to really learn those skills that would be a part of any employment in media that they might be interested in the future as well.
Yes, the Bieze Center has provided new space for a lot of our media. We have a new broadcast studio downstairs, as well as podcast studio, and so the students have really enjoyed making these new spaces their own. They have the ability to, as you said, mix sound in the music technology room, and again, having the space with which to do their activities has been a tremendous advantage.
Well, I know one of the great benefits, Amelia, to having so many clubs and activities is just having an increased number of ways our students can take leadership of an area and something they care deeply about, and work with younger students who might share that interest over time. What do you see as the main benefit to having leadership in so many areas of our clubs and activities?
It's such a great model to our younger students to see older students taking ownership and leadership within their clubs and organizations. All of our clubs have some sort of leadership position available, whether it's a president, vice president, executive officers, or team captain, as well as chaplains in most of our student groups. So the ability is there, and I think providing that model to our younger students is critical for the continuation of a student-driven activity program.
Yeah, and I mean, leadership in the 21st century is more important than ever, and it looks different than it ever looked before. And what's going to be required of our students as they go out into the world, ready to lead and serve with compassion, integrity, and a sense of purpose that our Strategic Plan 2025 calls us to, is more important than ever. And it's one of the things I'm most excited about our strategic plan, is giving a comprehensive look to all of the leadership opportunities our students have, whether that's through clubs and activities, through the peer leader program, through athletics, and seeing how we want to kind of build up these fundamental foundational skills in leadership for our students. So talk to me about, I know you're going to be so closely involved in that process and have a vision for it. Talk to me about where we go with that.
Sure. We know that we have leadership opportunities at Marist now, and we see the benefit to our students to have those leadership opportunities. Most of those exist in silos, And I'm really hoping to, in the next several years, bring them under an umbrella so that we have a common language with which to talk about leadership at Marist. And not only leadership in general, but what it means to be a Marist leader. Our core values at Marist give us such an opportunity to infuse the way we talk about leadership here with our Marist values. Ardent love of neighbor, serving others, but being hidden and unknown and not out in front. And so I think we have a real opportunity to create a program that is meaningful for our students, but also unique to us at Marist.
Yeah, the world needs leaders just like that, to be out in the world and prepared to bring unity, to bring together. And I look forward to the benefits that our students will have from the program you just described. We've enjoyed in the last few years having leadership taught over the summer as well through 4-credit academic courses, one on servant leadership, which we've done in partnership with Catholic Charities Atlanta, and the second in entrepreneurism and leadership, in looking at the way that especially sort of a social entrepreneur might consider the needs of others and see how through their work and through their leadership might meet those needs as well. So ultimately, what we want is for students who are well equipped to take those leadership skills that they've developed here and bring them to bear in the world as well.
Absolutely. We have had these summer programs. I think that in the future we're looking to add them as part of our academic year and as courses that students can take throughout their year and time here at Marist as well.
I think we've seen now more than ever that a call to public service is challenging and requires people to be prepared to be out in the community and to lead. How do you see the experiences our Marist students have in student government preparing them to participate in civic life?
We have 6 different student government branches under the umbrella of student government. We have a Foundations House Council that sort of governs the 7th and 8th grade level councils that manage all class level business, and then our 9th through 12th grade student council that sort of covers all of the high school side. So I like to say that we start them young in Foundations House Council. I try to put the kids out in front of their peers as often as I can to help get them used to public speaking and showing their involvement in the functioning of their school and their grade specifically.
And I know in particular, there's a leadership program that you use with our students. What's the benefit been of that for them?
The biggest benefit has been having a common language with which to talk about leadership. And so with some of the curriculum we use, they might not make sense to everybody when we talk about rivers and floods and the difference in rivers and floods. But to our students, to our student government students, they know that our meetings need to be focused and move in one direction, and there are boundaries on each side like a river, and that they are not destructive like a flood and chaotic and move all over. So frequently you will hear our students yell out in a meeting, "Stop being a flood." And the ability to have that common language, I think, is tremendous with our students.
For years to come, those who are in meetings with our students will appreciate that they know how to run a tight meeting with a clear agenda. It makes a big difference, as I'm sure they're beginning to discover now and as they'll put into practice in the future. Our students have opportunities to get sort of development themselves in leadership through their participation in conferences and workshops. Why don't you just talk to us a bit about what some of those opportunities are?
Absolutely. We take our student government students during the summer to a conference out in California that's all about student government, how to build an effective student government, how to lead, how to come up with new ideas while making it fun for the students. It's a fantastic bonding experience for the leadership within our 9th through 12th grade student council.
As we think to the future and what else might come, where else do you see our strategic plan 2025 sort of guiding you in your work in student clubs and activities?
Well, as we have previously talked about, because our clubs are student-driven, we're constantly seeing an evolution in our offerings. And I think that staying in touch with what the students want to learn more about and what they are passionate about helps keep us constantly moving forward. The activities that we're seeing come in from kids are unique and indicative of forward-thinking opportunities that they're looking for. I'm in the works of approving a Girls Who Code Club, and I could not be more excited to have that organization on our campus to help continue to further our opportunities here.
That's right. It's wonderful that our students both have the experiences they're able to have now, but know that if the experience isn't here, that at Marist we'll make it for them and we'll provide them that opportunity. It's amazing to me just how much time and dedication and commitment our students give to their clubs and activities. You know, you think about the number of hours our students clock in the robotics lab, for example, or preparing for any number of other of their meetings, and it's just a chance for them, I think, to really find some enjoyment in the work they're doing around campus and to spend a lot more time on campus than they would otherwise.
The campus never sleeps. We hear that often, and with the plethora of athletic activities after school and athletic events, students willingly stay on campus after school to participate in their activities. My office, I have to shoo kids out when I'm ready to leave because they're here working on whatever activities they're working on while they wait for the soccer game to begin. And you're right, they are willing to stay and they are excited to participate in these clubs.
Well, Amelia, I appreciate so much your leadership of that area and making sure that our students find opportunities to meet their needs, and appreciate very much having the chance to talk with you today too.
Thank you.
I'm so pleased to be able to welcome Tommy Marshall, Athletic Director at Marist School, to join me now to talk about how athletics is yet another way that we build up the whole person in the image of Christ here at Marist. Tommy, thanks so much for being with me.
Amen. Thank you.
We're glad to have the chance to speak with you about athletics and the impact athletics has on helping to form our students' whole person in the image of Christ. Just talk to us about that. You know, how do you see athletics fitting into this whole person development that is the signature of Marist?
Well, Kevin, I'm excited to be here. Anytime I get to talk about athletics, as you know, I get pretty excited. Our mission in athletics is to go hand in hand with the school's mission. We really focus on building the total person, spiritually, mentally, and physically, and building relationships that last a lifetime. That's our mission. And like I say, we want to go the same lessons they're learning in the classroom. We want those same lessons to spell out on our athletic fields, in the pools, on our courts, and all our different facilities.
And so, you know, as we think about that relationship between coach and athlete, you know, we have just a remarkably talented group of coaches who get every ounce of greatness out of their athletes in so many ways. How do you see that relationship as being sort of fundamental in doing just what you described?
Kevin, I think in athletics, the coaching student-athlete relationship is the key. The old adage that students will run through a wall if they know you care about them still holds true today. The biggest thing our student-athletes need to know is the coaches care about them and love them. And if that happens, the scoreboard takes care of itself. They come together, they bond together. The qualities that we talk about building in athletics, the leadership, the work ethic, some of those qualities that can only be built through athletics. Making others more important than yourselves. Our coaches do a great job of building team first. And when that happens, great things happen.
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously we've had our share of championships both this year and over the years, and I think that's a mark of excellence. But too, I remember being awarded the Sportsmanship Award, for example, through the Georgia Athletic Directors Association, and that being its own mark of success of a program, that our kids might knock you down, but they're the first ones to help pick you back up, and that we have an interest even in those who we're competing against to demonstrate our own excellence, but to let them bring their own greatness to bear there as well.
Well, as you know, I think the respect for the sport is so important. Our coaches do a great job of teaching that. But we talk about the Marist way. It extends even to athletics. The way we compete, how we handle ourselves. That's all part of the Marist way extended from academics to athletics. So we truly believe in that. Not like I say, our coaches are the front line for making that happen with all our athletic teams. And the players buy in. the great work ethic, the discipline that's involved, all those make up what we call Marist Athletics. Our tagline that we've used is to win with modesty and to lose with dignity. And that's tough on both phases. But our student athletes do a great job with that, and our coaches do a great job enforcing those, really the ideals of Marist.
Yeah, and I think, that in that way, we see the role of athletes is just a little bit different than a lot of schools do. And we see the way in which we build team and those teams interact a little bit differently also. I mean, it's one of the reasons we have a chaplain program. We look at leadership development through athletics a different way. Just speak about, some of those programs that sort of build up these other qualities in our student athletes that is a big part of our success.
Amen. Kevin, I'm glad you brought that up. Each of our teams has student chaplains, or a student chaplain, depending on their size. We have a phrase for this: they're God's ears and God's eyes. For our teams, for our coaches. Some of our coaches don't work on campus, they're community coaches. So there's that, they're in a leadership position to really look out for the spiritual well-being of their teams. They hold masses, they hold service projects, they do different things with the students. They have taglines, they have the slogan for the week. They lead the team in prayer. If not them, they find others. But our teams pray before every practice. That's one of the duties of the chaplain, is to bring that to fruition with our teams, to feel comfortable. It's not always them. They're involving others, and really it's just to emphasize the spiritual part of who we are through athletics. Bringing the spiritual journey along with their personal journey into light, and to really talk about things that are really important.
And I know our FCA, our Fellowship of Christian Athletes, is a huge group of students. I mean, how many kids on average do you get out there for?
Well, thank you for asking. We had 300 our first one.
Wow. With
Kyle Hamilton in his room at Notre Dame, sharing, going to the Prado and all the different things he does to prepare himself. And anywhere from usually 150 to 100 we settle with in the year, but usually the start of the year it's 300, 250. Once the academic sets in and everything else, it takes away from those Friday morning meetings. But really what we do is we bring in speakers, male and female coaches, former athletes here. We get athletes from Georgia Tech and some of the other colleges to really share their journey, to give a testimony of what their spiritual journey and their athletic journey look like, especially when they mesh and come together and they realize that all their ability came from God. That's the biggest thing we're trying to get, is use the ability God gave you, put it into a team concept, love each other, respect the game, let the scoreboard take care of itself, and go as far as you can.
So many of our student athletes would tell you they learn something so much really about themselves and about others through their participation in athletics. They find themselves becoming most whole through their participation in the athletic program here at the school. What do you see when students go on like Kyle Hamilton and they leave here? What lessons do they take away from their participation in athletics?
Well, I think almost to a T, every student that leaves here that goes to pursue athletics in college comes back and gives our coaches praises for the things they taught them, especially the work ethic. That's what most coaches realize. If you get a Marist athlete, their work ethic is second to none. The things they've experienced, the love between teammates, the respect of the game, all those teams, when you go on, are awful important. So almost all of our athletes, and the greatest thing is, like Kyle Farmer, who's playing for the Reds right now, they want to come back and share with their athletes. They've walked these halls. They've been part of our teams. They know the lessons that Coach Chadwick taught them and Coach Strickland taught them. And those relationships bring them back. At Marist events, one of the key things that I love is when our athletes come back and want to be together as a class, as individuals, and not so much for the game they're watching, is for all the fellowship that goes on in the stands. And it goes with parents too. When parents become involved with their kids, they're involved in the program, they're 100% committed. They love to come back and watch our teams compete, but they love to come back and see the parents that their kids played with and went to school with. And it's neat to see that circle.
That's right. It's that sense of fellowship, that relationship with others that we build up. It's why I think so many of our students want to participate in athletics. And in a given year, what percentage of our students are on teams, and how many teams do we have these days, Tommy?
It depends on what season it is. We have approximately 69 teams and 130 coaches. And it's exciting to see that relationship, what kids get involved in. About 85% of our student body is involved in athletics during a school year, during a calendar year. So again, it's so important that we take what they learn in the classroom and at this end of campus, take it down to their sports teams, their competition, and make it a reality. How does that work? What does that look like? You know, to win and lose, to learn how to pick up your teammates when you lose and you're hurting, and to build each other back up. And then celebrate the wins with some modesty and humility, but yet celebrate with your teammates. That's why we say, you know, if we do the little things, the scoreboard's going to take care of itself. And usually that's what happens.
That's right. And, you know, obviously when you're in the stands on a Friday night and you're watching that scoreboard go in our direction, as it so often does, you know, you experience something, it's called War Eagle Fever. Can you tell us about War Eagle Fever, Tommy?
War Eagle Fever is in the air. That's become a tagline, and really it's an excitement and enthusiasm. Our kids get together, our parents get together, and there's something going on campus. Everybody gets excited. Everybody gets enthusiastic. Like when I came in this morning, this shirt was white and this tie was red, and I came on campus and your face turns blue and gold, your clothes change color, you get that fever, there's no cure, there's no shot. Once you get it, you have it for life. So really we talk about it all the time. The students rally around it. It's sort of a rally cry that War Eagle Fever's in the air. Again, that students supporting students, parents supporting each other. But it's not just athletics. It's the play, it's the band, it's the rehearsals. It's a total Marist program for kids supporting kids, parents supporting parents. And really, it's a rally cry for all of us to rally around.
And this year I can say I was at the state cross-country meet, and I was at the state volleyball game and the state football game, and there really is something indescribable about what those experiences are for the young people participating and putting on display their God-given talents, but also for those of us who are watching and just witnessing young people doing exactly what God's prepared them to do. And through all of their hard work, it just, you can see that formation happening before your eyes as they become young men and women in each of those ways too.
Well, I think, Kevin, you brought up a great point, because that's part of the team concept. We try to make our teammates more important than ourselves. And when that happens, it creates a bond and something that we can't build, that has to happen between teammates, that they know their teammates are more important than themselves. And you can see at those events you talked about, the first thing a parent will come up and go, War Eagle Fever is in the air. The students rally around that. Probably my reward is to watch our teams compete together, watch them come together that other teams it doesn't seem to happen because of things we emphasize. If you emphasize a little thing, the big things happen. That you're talking about, state championships. Our charge for all our athletic programs is to really, again, take the challenge, love each other, listen to your coaches, play for each other, and again, those things happen. We want all of our teams to compete at the state level. That's one of our things. Let them compete at the state level and go as far as they can as a team, not as individuals.
So this year in particular, you know, we've had a pandemic, and I think if you'd asked a lot of us in August, you know, do you think you're going to have a wrestling season? Do you think you're going to have a basketball season? It would not have been an easy yes at the time to imagine how that would happen under these circumstances, but they have. You know, we've been able to do each of those things. And just talk a little bit about what you think that's meant to the school this year, what it's meant to the students, and how it's kind of, you know, brought school spirit and kept school spirit alive even during the pandemic.
Well, Kevin, I think it's been a rallying point, and as you know, I need to thank the administration for their support, because we had no idea what this was going to look like. You sort of let us go forward during the summer. I can remember the football players standing on the X's in the parking lot, 6 feet apart with masks and water jugs on June 8th, our first day back on campus. And at that time we were thinking, what in the world is this going to look like? 2 weeks later, here comes the volleyball team. The girls stand on X's. 2 weeks later, here comes cross-country program with 150 plus kids on campus and trying to do the little things that we expected. And then came the softball team. And then others just followed, and that freedom, and as you know, it was a give and take. There were things that worked and things we had to tweak. But that genuine buy-in of the coaches of wanting to make it happen. Our goal this year in all of our sports is to get our seniors to the finish line. And we're almost 2/3 of the way through the season, through this year, and it's happened. We're in the playoffs for the winter sports. All the spring sports have started. It's been a miracle. But it's taken a lot of people to buy in. And it started with the administration, it started with our coaches, it started with our parents, but most of all, it started with our student athletes, trying to do the little things that would get them to the finish line. We're asking more of our young people than ever before. But the athletic office staff, Chandler Yunt, those guys have done a great job in sort of setting the guidelines and protocols and then getting our community to buy in. It's really a community.
That's right. Yeah, and we don't take for granted how hard this has been on young people, and on our students. We know what a difference athletics make. I mean, you can see the smiles coming on their faces first because you see them without masks finally, but how much they need and enjoy what's happening out there and what they're able to do, that they're able to compete, that they're out of their houses and able to do the athletics that they love so much.
Kevin, I think this has been an outlet for them. Because of all the other things they faced and the challenges and the difficulties, I believe athletics has become that tool, that outlet that they can socialize and be together and see their teammates, and just it brings a new light into the everyday aspect of what they're facing.
That's right. So as we look forward from here, beyond this school year, beyond the pandemic, what's next for athletics program? How do we take that next step, continue to have that excellence we have, but continue to build up team, continue to build up community, continue to teach relationship? What does that look like as we move forward from here?
Well, I think, Kevin, again, I go back to the administration who sets the tone. I think the buy-in of the administrations, the kind of people we hire, the community coaches we bring in that have a passion for what they do for our kids, and we keep building the respect and the love factors in our teams and our relationships. And we keep focusing on the ability that God's given each of us and the role that each of us play on those teams. The great part of our coaches and our teams is each player on those teams has a role. And they understand that role. Some it's to rebound, some it's to score, some it's to defend. So there's roles in each of our teams. But I think it all starts with realizing that at Marist we're blessed. We can talk about love. We can talk about the love that comes from God. We can talk about the ability that God gives us, the relationship value that he brings when Jesus becomes real into our teams. So we can talk about the intangibles. And if we keep emphasizing the intangibles, the things that make us different, then I think going forward, the success is not necessarily in records, but the success of our kids and our programs. The championships and those take care of itself. But as you know, at Marist, our success is the kids want to come back and see their coaches and their teachers and get together all the time. That's what I hope will go forward with what we do. The little things and the records and all those, if we keep hiring the right people, we keep emphasizing the right things with the administration, with the office staff, with our head coaches who set the program, who really set the tone for the program for all of our other teams. Success will come.
That's it, and I mean, I think that's right on. Success is in the people, and that's what makes the program kind of achieve all that it's able to do. And I think you identified some really important things, which is getting the right coaches in front of the right kids is a big part of our formula. And what do you think attracts coaches to want to come to Marist, and how do we attract athletes who want to come to Marist too and be a part of our program? What do each of those things look like?
That's the challenge of today, reaching today's youth. With all the different things they have to do. It used to be, I'm doing it because coach said to do it. Today it's got to be that the coach is excited about who I am and what I can do. And Kevin, I think the bottom line out of all this is building relationships with young people, which is a challenge today. kids don't react the same way. So how do you treat this young man or this young lady versus dealing with this young man, this young lady today? Coaches have to really adapt, just like teachers have to do in the classroom, different learning styles. There's different learning styles in athletics. And I think to keep putting that as a priority with those coaches, with the teachers, and I think what sets us apart is the way we do things. When I talk to people at GHSA, the compliment we get is Marist has always done it right. We've always played up. We've always played up classifications. We've always met that challenge. But yet in the things we do off the field, in the way we treat other people, the way our coaches are with the referees, the sportsmanship issue, I don't think you can, that's got to be a key component. Because I think people recognize, and that's what we do, that there's one way to do things, and that's the correct way at Marist. That's the Marist way.
And from a coaching perspective, you know, how do we know, what do you look for in a coach coming to Marist? What are those qualities that you go, that's somebody who we want to put in front of Marist students?
I think great coaches are great teachers. And I think you found that out in the classroom as well. And because we have the limited number of opportunities trying to match up class and coaching opportunities, that's the challenge that we all face working together. As you let me talk to almost all the teachers that come in, I think there's a balance there, and I think that's key. And I think, again, our coaches emphasizing the right thing. There are a lot of coaches out there that are great with X's and O's that you would not want to coach your sons and daughters. We want to bring in people, and what I want my son and daughter who both went to Marist to play for this coach. That says it all.
Yeah. And what you described, you know, is a coach who has that personalized approach, who gets to know each athlete individually, and sort of caters their coaching style and what they bring to them because they know who they are, and they care for that young person. And you'll get kids to do great things if you know them and care for them.
And Kevin, that's key. The coaches in this, take myself and our staff, but the coaches' success, any success that we have, can be directly attributed to our coaches, our head coaches, and that's where it all starts.
Well, Tommy, thanks so much. I appreciate you joining me today, and I've just enjoyed speaking with you and working with you, and just want to acknowledge that this is your final year with us as you head on into retirement. And obviously, I and all of us here just know how much of this athletics program has been built through your efforts and love for this school and this place. And so, it's with great gratitude that I say thank you for that.
And Kevin, I just want to end with this. I'm probably the most blessed person on this campus, way beyond my means, but when you look forward to coming to your job every day, this is more than a job. It's a mission that God called me to a long time ago, but it was enhanced by the opportunity to be at Marist and to talk about spiritual things with no hesitation. And so I'm the one that's been blessed by the administration, the past administration from 25 years ago. If he'd have told me we'd been here today, I'd have wondered about it, sort of like, but like I say, I'm the most fortunate. I'm blessed by the coaches, by the administration, by the parents, but most of all, we come back to relationships that have been built, and I'll remember those for a lifetime.
Well, Tommy, thank you so much. That brings to a close the second installment that focused on our strategic priority to educate the whole child as we seek to help Marist students find balance in their lives as they grow intellectually, aesthetically, physically, and spiritually and emotionally. Next, we'll turn our attention to how we seek to form global-ready servant leaders. And we'll do that in our next installment, and we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you so much.